After 4 years of covering President Biden, Peter Doocy switched to the Trump transition. I spoke to Fox's chief White House correspondent here in Studio 2. Peter Doocy, welcome.
Thanks, Howie.
What has struck you about now covering the Trump transition after 4 years of following Joe Biden around?
The transition itself is a lot different because I remember in 2017, spent a lot of time in New York City and in Palm Beach, and there were these nominees coming in for tryouts or hopefuls coming in for tryouts. And then 4 years ago in Wilmington, peak COVID, they drew those little circles for us to sit in at a theater in Wilmington to see Biden. And he was out there a fair amount. He wanted to be seen. It seems like the president-elect right now is taking advantage of a break. He's already been there. He knows that a press pool is going to be on him every day, 24/7 in January, whether he likes it or not.
Seems to be running the country.
Well, there's that too. But he's able to run the country right now, kind of on vacation. This is like a vacation until next month. And so it seems like he's taking advantage.
Well, President Biden occasionally called on you and once apologized for insulting you. But in the last couple of years, it seems like he didn't really call on many reporters at all, or you'd get a couple of click comments by the helicopter. Very different style, obviously, than the incoming president.
It's been less and less and less. And my experience with President Biden is that he really liked having a chance to defend his positions. And probably 3/4 of the time with me, it was to raise his voice and show that he still got it. And there have just been fewer and fewer opportunities for that. There's this Wall Street Journal story suggesting that maybe the 50 staffers who they interviewed, very few of them who put their names on it, are suggesting that the inner circle was covering up a decline. And then you have to wonder, why would they do that?
Well, let's talk about that Wall Street Journal story because it was deeply reported. And in the last couple of years, it says that President Biden barely spoke even to Lloyd Austin or Janet Yellen, that meetings were cut short, and as well that a meeting would be canceled if he was having a bad day.
Well, remember, this time last year, Lloyd Austin was in the hospital with cardiac problems, and we didn't know about it. The president didn't know about it for a long time, which is a huge problem when there's a war going on in Ukraine that President Biden lists as a top priority. If you think back to this summer, around the time of the dropout, there were a lot of questions about President Biden's health. And there was this doctor who was a Parkinson's specialist who was cleared into the White House many, many times. We had an entire White House briefing once where almost every question was about what that doctor was doing. And we did not get clear answers. They essentially were saying, they were essentially citing HIPAA, which becomes an issue when there are legitimate questions about an older president.
He is still the president of the United States for another month. And here we go through the annual Christmas stopgap measure drama. And he hasn't said a word. And Democrats don't particularly want him to weigh in, according to reporting.
It seems like he wants to stick to the things that he said when he dropped out. He said he wanted to seek a hostage and ceasefire deal. He never mentioned he wanted to help avoid a government shutdown. So that's just, however it turns out, or it's going to be dirty.
Just briefly, were you surprised at some of the details in that journal story about Biden's mental decline?
I was not surprised. I've had a lot of experiences with President Biden. I think something that you get from that story is you never really know when somebody is speaking on behalf of the president if they've actually spoken to the president. And every story like this that comes out, it seems like the circle was a lot smaller than we realized.
Giving away the trade secrets. Peter Doocy, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Howie.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.